Hare Krishna Mataji. Now we have to start. Our recording is going to start.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay, so I think it is still blurry, but I think we'll go with this for today. And we will start our today's session. So what I'll do is I will open the book, and then we'll say our pranam mantras, and then we will get started. Okay, so I have the screen up. Let's start with our pranam mantras, and then we will get into the recap a little bit, and then we will finish today the 5th chapter of On the Way to Krishna book, which is the first book. Okay, so let's start with our quick pranam mantras. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so I have the screen up now that we are on the book On the Way to Krishna. It is the first book from our reading list, and we are on the 5th chapter, Steering Towards the Supreme. Okay, so today we'll follow a little reverse order of the recap. We will finish the reading today as first part, and then last 10 minutes what we will do is we'll do the recap of the whole book. Usually what do? We do the recap in the beginning, right? So since we are finishing off the book today, what we'll do is we'll finish off the reading for today, and then we'll do the recap of the whole book. Okay, so let's get to our reading. So last week we stopped at the shloka, so we will start from here. Okay, let's go a little back here. So the name of the chapter, or this last chapter, is Steering Towards Krishna. So we'll start this reading, and then and I think between as we talk, we will also catch up on a few things that we have already talked about this chapter in last week. Okay, so I'll start. In material nature, there are 5 gross elements: earth, water, air, fire, and space. So what is the shloka in Bhagavad Gita, right? Krishna says there are about the Ashta Prakriti, Ashtada Prakriti. It is earth, water, fire, air, and ether, that is space. In different planets, there are different atmospheres due to one of these 5 elements prevailing. And these are different bodies, and there are different bodies of living entities composed of whatever element may be the predominant in a particular planet. So see this first sentence, which I've highlighted here in the blue, actually that's true even, so that's true for regardless of any planet, right? So examples of this in our planet, how is it? There are fishes in the water, right? And you know the fish's body is composed of 90% of water and 4% of the element earth, and then 3%, which is less than that, the element fire, and then the air and ether. The rest is air and ether. So the majority of the content of the body that is made of the fish is water. Why is that so?
Because it
Because
lives in the
fish
water.
lives in, yes, fish lives in the water. That's why. Similarly, if we see bird's body, right? Bird's body, they are so light, right? So there is so much space component of space and air in their body, and that enables them. So based on how the species of life is going to live their life, the nature provides them the body which is conducive to that. So like birds have to fly right in the air, and what if they have a watery body and they are heavy? Will they be able to fly? No. So similarly, human beings, we also have all these 5 elements in our body: earth, water, air, fire, and space. In our bodies, we have about 70% of water and about 20 something plus percent of earth, and then we have air, fire, and ether, other things remaining. So that makes this body conducive in living on the, not in the water, but on the earth, right? So similarly, what this sentence is saying, that there are different planets, and all those planets have species of life. We think that life is only on Earth. No, actually there is life on all other planets. And all other planets also have these 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, and ether. And the life on those other planets, the living beings on other planets, they have the bodies which are conducive to the environment of that particular planet. Similarly, there is also life on sun. Remember, we read about that last week. Sun also moves from the Uttarayan and then Dakshinayan movements of the sun, right? He goes 4 degrees and then comes back, and that's how we have seasons. So without the personality controlling that, or without any science to it, is it possible that these all things are happening just by itself? No, right? There is somebody doing it, and there is somebody controlling it, right? So similarly, there is a life even on the sun planet, and the sun god Vivaswan, he actually is also he also has life like us, because they are demigods. They have like long duration of life, but they also have life like us. And the bodies that they have is mostly made on the sun planet. If there is life on the sun planet, their bodies are made of fire. Like most prominent element in that will be fire, right? So similarly, there is life on everywhere, innumerable. And actually, there is one shloka, very nice shloka in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes how many percent of living entities in this in this universe, entire universe, are human beings, um, are beasts, and are other animals like aquatics, birds. So out of all that, human beings are only 5%. 95% of the living entities, which includes trees, plants, aquatics, birds, bees, all this is altogether is 95%. So we'll go through that chart sometime to see how it is presented graphically, and how it is, it gives a good pictorial view of at least idea how rare is this human body to get. Of all those living entities, it's only 5% chance that we get the human body. So what is Prabhupada trying to explain here? We should not think that all planets have the same quality of life. Yet there is uniformity in the sense that these five elements are present in some form or the other. Thus, on some planets, earth is prominent, fire is prominent, water is prominent, and air and space is prominent. We should not think, therefore, that just because the planet is not composed primarily of earth or because the atmosphere does not duplicate ours, there is no life on this planet. Vedic literature gives us the information. There are countless planets filled with the living entities with different types of bodies. As by making some material adjustments, we may qualify to enter into the different material planets. By qualification, we can enter into the spiritual planet where the Supreme Lord resides. Yanti deva vrita devan pitruyanti pitravrata bhutani yanti bhuteya yanti madyajnopi mam. Those who worship the demigods take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. And those who worship me will live with me. Clearly, Krishna is saying that, it is our choice, wherever consciousness is. And that's why we need to steer our consciousness towards the Lord, because the fact that this human body is rare, this is an opportunity to break through the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death, right? And attain to that supreme destination where we don't have to go through this temporary cycle again and again and come into our permanent and eternal spiritual form, and have that loving reciprocation with the Lord. Those who are trying to enter higher planets can go there, and those who are trying to qualify to enter into Goloka Vrindavan, which is the planet of Krishna, can also enter there by the process of Krishna consciousness. Before going to India, we must acquire a description of what the country is like. Hearing about the place is the first experience. Similarly, if we want to get information about the planet where God lives, we have to hear. We cannot immediately make an experiment and go there. That is not possible. But we have so many descriptions of the supreme planet in the Vedic literature. For instance, the Brahma Samhita 5.29. So, Govinda Madhipurusham, we read this, right? Chintamani para prakarsha samut sadmashu kalpa vriksha lakshavriteshu surabhirapi palayantam lakshmi sahasra satasambhara sevyamanan govindamadipurusham tamaham bhajami. I worship God, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, fulfilling all desires in the abodes built with the spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of wish-fulfilling trees, always served with the great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or gopis. There are also other detailed descriptions given, specifically in Brahma Samhita. So we read this prayer in the morning, right? We recite this while the Darshanarti. So where Lord has explained, or Brahma is offering these prayers, and he's explained how the abode of the Lord is. And those who are trying to realize the absolute truth are categorized according to the aspect of absolute truth on which they concentrate. Those who concentrate on Brahman, the impersonalists, are called Brahmavadis. Generally, those who are trying to realize the absolute truth first of all realize the Brahma Jyoti. So I think last 2 weeks back, we learned this concept, right? Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, right? The Brahman is the effulgence of the Lord. Paramatma is the Lord who is all pervading. He is sitting in each and every atom in our hearts and everywhere else. And Bhagwan is the Swarupa, is the form of the Lord who is reciprocating all different kinds of rasas with his devotees, and he's in his abode. The Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion, is sitting in everyone's heart, and by meditation and concentration, one can perceive this form. Not only is he within everyone's heart, but he is situated within every atom of the creation. This Paramatma realization is the second stage, right? The first stage is Brahman realization. Second stage is Paramatma realization. And then the third stage is the two-handed form of Krishna, that is Bhagwan. Not only he is within everyone's heart, but he's situated within every atom of the creation. This is Paramatma realization, is the second stage. The third stage of this realization is Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because there are three main stages of realization: the Supreme Absolute Truth, and is not attainable in one birth. Bahunam Janmanam Ante. Yeah, we have read this shloka already, I think somewhere in second chapter. After many, many births, Bahunam means many, and Janmanam, Janma means birth, Ante, at the end. So at the end of many, many births, we can attain this realization. And if one is fortunate, he can achieve the ultimate goal in 1 second, but generally it takes many, many years and many, many births to realize what God is. And by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, you see, we have this so nice purports where Srila Prabhupada is explaining to us these books that he has left as his legacy, and we are reading these and we are getting this knowledge, we are discussing who God is, why we are here. All these questions are being answered, right, in this purports and books that Prabhupada has left, and of course the scriptures that Prabhupada has translated, like Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we are so fortunate that we have this opportunity to know all this knowledge, which is absolute knowledge. So, 10th chapter, Krishna is saying of Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti ma matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitha. I am the source of all spiritual and material world. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly knows this, engages in my devotional service and worships me with all their hearts. The Vedanta. So let's see who would like to read one small paragraph here, starting from the Vedanta.
Can I read
Sutra. Go ahead, Jyotsna.
the Vedanta Sutra part?
Yes.
The Vedanta Sutra also confirms that the Absolute Truth is He from whom everything is born. If we truly believe that Krishna is the origin of everything, and if we worship Him, our whole account is closed in 1 second. But if one doesn't believe and says, "Oh, I want to see what God is," he has to go by stages by realizing the impersonal Brahman, effulgence, and then Paramatma, the localized feature, before finally coming into the last stage of realization. Oh, here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It should be understood, however, that This process takes more time when one through many years of research comes to realize the absolute truth. He concludes Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Vasudeva is all that is. Vasudeva is a name for Krishna, and it means he who lives everywhere. Realizing that Vasudeva is the root of everything, Mam Prapadyate, he surrenders. The surrendering process is the ultimate goal. Either one does it immediately or after many births of research work. In either case, surrender must be there by realizing that God is great and I am his subordinate.
Thank you, Jyotsna. So what was the main highlight here? That if one thinks that, if one has that faith in the scriptures or in the guru, what is given to us, then he can know God right away. It won't take time because when we're reading books, we are discussing this. One may come to the understanding of how God is, who God is, where does he live, what is his abode, what are his activities, how does he look like right away, right? And if person doesn't have faith, and if he says that, oh, I want to see first with his eyes, right? First of all, we have imperfect eyes. Our senses are imperfect, right? We discussed that in the first class. You all remember how imperfect our senses are? So if he says that, oh, I want to see first God, then it might take long time until they come to that realization through different stages. And what are those stages? First is the stage, first they have to go through the Brahman realization, then Paramatma realization, and then finally come into that Bhagwan realization. They will understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it will take long time. And finally, Prabhupada is saying this quote is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudevam Devaha Sarvam Iti. That Vasudeva is everything. That realization comes after long time. But if one has faith, they can know Krishna by the mercy of Krishna and Guru right away. Okay, so we'll continue. Govinda, you want to read this small paragraph, understanding this?
Yeah, understanding this, the wise man will surrender diligently and not wait to take many births. He understand that the information is given by the Supreme Lord out of his eternal mercy, infinite mercy on the conditioned souls. We are all conditioned souls suffering the
threefold miseries.
The threefold miseries of the material world. Now the Supreme Lord is giving us the opportunity to escape these miseries by the surrendering process.
Very nice. Thank you, Govinda. So, knowing, right, getting this opportunity, what are we getting actually? We are getting an mercy of Lord, which can actually make us free from threefold miseries. What is those? We talked about that also in our around second class. Threefold miseries. Miseries given by the body.
The body from the animals,
right,
and from the mind and the senses.
And the external calamities from the nature. That's one. from the body and mind, that's second, and from other living entities, that's the third one. So this is our chance. When we have this opportunity, if we can put some faith into it and adhere to this process of surrender. Surrender means following the instructions of our guru, right? Following the doing some form of service to the Lord, reading about the Lord, listening to the scriptures, right? This is all process of surrender. If we follow all that, we have chance to free ourselves from the threefold miseries. At this point, one may ask that if the Supreme Personality is the ultimate goal and one has to surrender to him, why are there so many processes of worship in the world? This question is answered in next verse. So in Bhagavad Gita 7.20, Krishna is saying, right? Kamistestar hrita jnana prapatyante anya devata tam niyamam asthaya prakriti niyata svaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by the material desires surrender on to the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own nature. So you see, what is the key word here? Own nature. Because if they have certain consciousness, level of consciousness, now gives them opportunity to associate in that in that kind of religion or in that kind of with those kind of people who are of the same consciousness, and then try to slowly elevate them. But Krishna is saying this is for those whose intelligence has been stolen by the material desires. Now they will have, okay, I want to do these things, I want to achieve these things. Then based on that, whatever is conducive for their, then they have they have to follow different paths. But Krishna is saying that he actually is not an intelligent person. That's what the gist of it is. Because if person is intelligent, then there is a direct path, right? Which Prabhupada has laid out, which Krishna is giving. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his movement, has given, right? Chanting and purifying ourselves with the holy name. There are many different types of men in this world, and they are functioning under the different modes of material nature. Generally speaking, most men are not after liberation. If they take to spirituality, they wish to gain something by the spiritual power. So why would they have different paths? They will follow different things. But what is their intent in doing all that? They want to gain something out of it. They want some power. They want some siddhis, right? And in that, they are missing this highest destination. It is not uncommon in India for a person to go to a Swami and say, Swamiji, could you give me some medicine? I'm suffering from this disease. He thinks because a doctor is too expensive, he can go to a Swami who can work miracles. In India, there are also Swamis who go to people's house and preach. If you give me 1 ounce of gold, I can make it into 100 ounces of gold. The people think, I have 5 ounces of gold. Let me give it to him, and I will get 500 ounces of gold. So this is greed, right? What is this? This is greed, actually. When we are approaching a guru, what should be the intent? Should the intent be to gain something out of that? If we have to gain something, then there is whole world to gain, right? Why do we need the guru to do that? So in this way, the Swamis collect the gold in the village, and after collecting it, he vanishes. This is our disease. We go to a Swami or a temple or a church, or our hearts are filled with the material desires. wanting some material profit out of the spiritual life. We practice yoga just to keep our health fit. But in order to keep healthy, we take the shelter of yoga. We can become healthy through regular exercise and regular diet. Why resort to yoga? Because kami sthir rita jnana. In the shloka, as how Prabhupada is explaining, that the intelligence is stolen of such people. Why have a material desire to keep ourselves fit and to enjoy life by going to church and making God our order supplier? Okay, so who would like to read the next? Manhar, you would like to read Having Material Desires?
Yeah. Having material desires, men worship various demigods. They have no idea how to get out of matter. They want to utilize the material world to its best capacity. For instance, in Vedic literatures, there are so many recommendations. If one wants to cure his disease, he worships the sun. Or if a girl wants a good husband, he worships Lord Shiva. Or if one wants to become beautiful, he worships such and such god. Or if one wants to become educated, he worships goddess Saraswati. This way, Westerners often think that the Hindus are polytheistic, but actually this worship is not to God, but to demigods. We should not think that the demigods are gods. God is one, but they are demigods who are also living entities just like us. The difference is that they have a considerable amount of power. On this earth there may be a king or president or dictator. These are men like us, but they have some extraordinary power. In order to get favors from them, to take advantage of their power, is worship them in one way or the other. But the Bhagavad Gita condemns worship of the demigods. This verse clearly states that the people worship the demigods due to kama, material lust.
Correct. So the demigods, actually, they are also living entities like us, but they have high power. They are like they are empowered by the Lord to perform certain things in this to run this material universe. But when we worship them, the mood of worship should not be to have some personal gain out of it. That's what Gita's message is. That when we are worshiping, then this includes not just the demigods, but any other form of worship. The worship should not be to attain some personal gain, because then that is, if we are just doing that for the personal gain, that it is just because of the lust, because of the material lust, which is karma. That's what Prabhupada is explaining here. Okay. So, Mihika, you want to read this next paragraph? This material life is simply based. Mihika? Yeah.
Yes, Mataji. This material life is simply based on lust. We want to enjoy this world and we love this material world because we want to gratify our senses. This lust is perverted reflection of our love of God. In our original constitution, we are made to love God, but because we have forgotten God, we love matter. Love is there. Either we love matter or we love God, but in no case can we get out of this loving propensity. Indeed, we often see that when one doesn't have children, he loves a cat or a dog. Why? Because we want and need to love something. In the absence of reality, we put our faith and love in love in cats and dogs. Love is always there, but it's distorted into the form of lust. This lust is baffled, we become angry, and when we become angry, we become illusioned, and when we are illusioned, we are doomed. This is the process that we are going on, and we have to reverse this process and turn lust into love. If we love God, we love everything, and if we do not love God, it's not possible to love anything. We may think that it is love, but it's simply a glamorized form of lust. Those who have become the dogs of lust are said to lost all good sense. Kame ste gnana.
Very nice. So again, the message is going back to the same, that the intelligence is of such person is lost due to the lust. But in our original form, that same thing is actually love. We want to give. We don't want to enjoy for our own selves, but we want to give. So that's like a perverted reflection. It's like, you know what perverted means? It's like upside down, right? So versus when we are in the spiritual world, it is love. But when we are in the material world, it transforms into a lust that we want. But there we want to give. So that's the difference. And only purified heart can have that bhava of love. There are many rules and regulations for worship of demigod in the scriptures, and one may question why Vedic literature recommend their worship. There is a necessity. Those who are motivated by lust want the opportunity to love something, and demigods are acknowledged as the officers of the Supreme Lord. The idea is that one worships these demigods, he gradually develops the Krishna consciousness. But if one is completely atheist and disobedient and rebellious against any authority, what hope is there? So one's obedience to the higher personality can start with the demigods. That's why the people who are worshipping demigods, they are also they also have some faith element in them, right? They are also on the path, but slowly, gradually, they will ultimately come to that highest understanding of, that Supreme Lord is above everything. He's the source of everything. So their surrendership will come eventually to that point. But gradually, to start with, they when they have faith in something, that's why we have all this different forms of worship and different religions and paths. If, however, we take directly to the worship of the Supreme Lord, worship of the demigod is not necessary, although it is a starting point, but it's not necessary at the same time. Do you understand? Those who worship the Supreme Lord directly show all respect to the demigods, but they do not need to worship them because they know that the supreme authority behind the demigod is the supreme personality of Godhead, and they are engaged in worshiping him. In any case, respect is still there. A devotee of the Lord shows respect even to an ant. What to speak of the demigod? The devotee is aware that all living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and they are playing different roles only, like the sun god, the water god, the Pavan Dev, the god of the wind, right? They have been empowered and given those services to run this material world. So if someone is faithful to them, eventually they will come to this realization that these are all actually also serving the Lord, like us, right? So in relation to the Supreme Lord, all beings are to be respected. Therefore, a devotee refers to others as Prabhu, meaning, my dear sir, my dear Lord. Submissiveness is a qualification of a devotee of the Lord. Devotees are kind and obedient, and they have good qualification. In conclusion, one must become a devotee of Lord. All good qualifications will automatically develop. By nature, the living entity is perfect, but due to the contamination of lust, he becomes vicious. That which is part and parcel of the God, of the gold, is also gold, correct? If there is a whole big brick of gold, and if you just take one tiny like piece of that gold, that will have the same qualities, right? So similarly, when we say the soul is part and parcel of the God, it still has the same qualities. It is blissful, it is fully knowledgeable, and it is eternal. And these are the qualities of the Lord also. But we are in the tiny mind, we are in the tiny form, and Lord is supreme, He's magnificent. That's the difference. And whatever is the part and parcel of the complete perfect is also perfect. That's why, by nature, soul has all these qualities to love, to be obedient. But just because we have that element, we've acquired that element of lust, we've contaminated ourselves. That's why we are here. We are bound in this material body, and we have to gear our consciousness, steer our consciousness towards the Lord to be purified and get out of this material. Okay, so I'll just read the translation here, and then we will do a quick recap of all 5 chapters here in another 10 minutes, okay? The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as the phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as the complete whole. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains complete balance. Due to the contamination of matter, the perfect living entity falls down. Okay, so here is the reason Prabhupada is telling us why we came to this material world. Because of contamination of the matter, the perfect living entity falls down. But this process of Krishna consciousness will again make us perfect. Through it, he can become truly happy, and after leaving the material body, enter into the kingdom where there is eternal life, bliss, and full of knowledge. That means Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So he attains the pure happiness, pure bliss there. So see, here we finished the chapter. Where did we start the chapter from? In the conclusion, first of all, in the conclusion, it is saying that how we, due to the contamination of matter, we have fallen down here. But if we purify ourselves, we can be truly happy. And after leaving this material body, we enter into the kingdom of God, which is full of bliss, eternal life, and full of knowledge. So we attain our Swarupa, real Swarupa, and real happiness. Okay, so that's the conclusion of the chapter. Now let's do a little recap. Where did we start? What was the first thing we discussed in the first?
What is that?
True way to happiness, right?
True way to happiness.
Correct. So the first chapter we started talking about the happiness, right? The difference between, we are seeking happiness, but in the conclusion of the last chapter we read how we get the real happiness by
we going to the spiritual world, we stay in material world, we have happiness and sadness.
Yeah, so we will get the life full of happiness, full of knowledge and eternal life only by purifying our consciousness. And here in the first chapter we had studied in the first lesson, We had studied how right now also we are seeking happiness, but we are seeking happiness here in the matter, in the things, in the cars, in the houses, and clothing and shoes and assets, properties, right? And position, fame. So these are all things that are going to not last forever. We may get some temporary pleasure out of this, but it is not going to last forever. It will be taken away. It's not permanent. So in the first chapter, we learned the difference between the material happiness and the spiritual happiness, which is eternal, and the material happiness is temporary. The nature of the two. Where are they coming from? And then in the second chapter, we studied that how we get purified through chanting and knowing Krishna. Then in the third chapter, we saw how we can see Krishna everywhere, right? Remember that conversation where Krishna is saying that I am the light in the sun, I am the intelligence of the intelligent, I am the taste in water. So we were discussing how we can see Krishna everywhere, right? It is not possible if we understand, get this knowledge from our scriptures through our Guru Parampara, through the saintly people. It's not, and where we can get the realization of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, right? We can see Krishna everywhere. We can, in those who are on the Brahman platform, they can, feel Krishna as an energy, which is running everything. And then, otherwise Krishna can be seen everywhere in every single atom, but knowing Krishna also in the form of Bhagwan as this two-handed form of the supreme, beautiful Lord. That's, that's our ultimate goal of life. And then in the fourth chapter, Prabhupada was making a distinction of the road of the foolish and the wise. So if we are foolish, we will be, what was that word used in that chapter, in that verse? Mudha is the foolish if we are not taking to this opportunity, which is so rare, to attain and Krishna consciousness, to purify our souls, to elevate ourselves and return back to the spiritual kingdom, our eternal life. And that path is the path of the wise person. And then in the finally last chapter, we saw how we can steer ourselves to purify, because it's a wise thing to do, steering our consciousness towards the Lord to get purified. And ultimately, in the last part, what did we read? Let's read that again. That's the whole conclusion of all 5 chapters. Due to the contamination of matter, the perfect living entity falls down. But this process of Krishna consciousness will make him perfect again. Through it, he can become truly happy. So see, it's going back to the same thing that we are seeking happiness now, but we are in bound by this body, and we are thinking in relation. What makes us happy? Where we are just thinking everything in relationship to this body. If we eat good food, we think we are happy, but we don't like food, like after like being fed full meal, then same rasgullas we won't be able to eat so much, right? So we have a limitation. This body has the limitation. The senses through which we perceive these temporary material happiness have limitation. But versus the true happiness is not bound by anything. It ever increases and increases and increases. And after leaving this material body, we can enter into the kingdom of the eternal bliss, eternal life, bliss, full of bliss and knowledge. That is the conclusion of all 5 chapters. So I would like all of you to share something, what you learned throughout this book, or anything that, what you understood from this chapter, or anything you want to share with your friends.
And Govinda, like you said, like in the material world, when we eat so much, We eat so much, our tummy gets full in the material world. But in the spiritual world,
we can eat as much as we want. But there we will not get happiness in eating ourselves. We'll get happiness in feeding everybody else around us.
yeah.
Serving, giving, making nice items for Krishna's pleasure. And that will make us even more happy than eating ourselves, right? Just like mother, right? Even if she's hungry, and even if there are, there is like maybe 2 or 3 gulab jamuns or rasagullas, right? Whatever sweets, she will feed her son or daughter first. She'll feed her children first. Why? She's also hungry. She could eat and enjoy, but she feels more happy, more satisfied in serving her children, right? So similarly, there in spiritual world, our true happiness is coming from the love and the bond that we share with others. And true happiness will coming from serving others and serving Krishna. Very nice. Thank you, Govinda. Who else would like to share anything? Manohar, Mihika, Jyotsna.
Mataji,
Yes. Go ahead.
what does contamination mean?
Contamination means, so say if there is a glass of water, right? And say some ink fell down into it, the blue ink or some mud, that dirty hands you had, and those drops fell into the water. What will be the situation or condition of the water? That water will be contaminated now, right? It will be contaminated with the germs.
You mean contamination means dirtiness.
Dirtiness, yes. So in the material world, we are contaminated. Our soul is contaminated with what? With the
Misery.
lust to enjoy the things for our own sake, for our own self. That is greed, this lust, greed, anger. These are all the things that,
Illusion. Pride.
yes, all these are anarthas. These are unwanted things, and our soul is contaminated with these things. And we have to purify that by the process of Krishna consciousness, chanting Krishna, knowing Krishna, talking to others about Krishna, right? So that's how we get purified. Okay. Yes, anybody would like to share?
Mataji, like how much I could hear from previous classes before, because I always join half an hour late. So from all that, I understand that, and I also like we always think that we'll get happy from from eating whatever doing or doing whatever we want, but after we do it for a while, we just quit it. Like when a kid or a baby gets a new toy, he plays it for a little bit and then you find it at the corner of the house.
Right, correct. We have limitation in us, right? Our senses have limitation. All our senses have limitation. We can listen to a certain extent, we can eat to a certain extent, smell, touch, feel, all those, sense gratification that we get from this material world, all of them have limitation. You will like it for some time and then you will get frustrated with the same thing. But it is very opposite, in fact, in the spiritual world, where the happiness, because the reason why it is totally opposite, because there we are not getting happiness from gratifying ourselves, but our true happiness comes from serving others and serving Krishna. Okay, thanks, Mihika. Very nice. Who else would like to share?
Can I add something to mine?
Yes, go ahead.
Like one example could be like when people display illusionary pictures. Like one picture I saw, it was like a tree, but if you see it from the other side, there are like 8 faces on the tree. So like some people won't see that because that's the limitation to our eyes, that if we could see the illusions that are in the picture or not.
Mhm. Yeah. Are you asking a question, Mihika? Or are you sharing?
I would just share.
Very nice. Thank you. Okay, so we formally finished one book. Next week we will start the second book, and I will see which one it is.
What book name is it?
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah. So
I think it's Science of Self-Realization.
No, that is in third category, but it is I think Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. But I'll post on the group chat and let you guys know, and then we'll start the second book. So are you guys enjoying this? Like, we are reading Prabhupada's books, and you can say that we
Yeah,
have
but I'm waiting for read Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Chaitanya Charitamrita.
So what
I'm-
canto is Chaitanya Charitamrita?
There are different
There's
leelas.
2 cantos, Madhya Leela and one more.
There's Adi, Madhya, and Antya.
Yeah,
And
3 I forgot.
we'll come to that slowly, gradually. Okay?
I'm reading for Prabhupada Leela.
Very nice. Very nice, Manohar. Okay,
It
so
has 2 cantos.
yeah, correct. So we'll end here by our pranam mantras, and then we will see you next week with the second book. Okay? Okay. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Shil Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, see you all next week. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yes.
Yesterday for Prabhupada's disappearance day, I went to the temple.
Very nice. Did you had nice feasts in kachoris? That is the
We
day.
didn't have kachoris, but we had a lot of food. We had like cake, cookies,
Yeah.
and
So
we
see
had
that actually it's very sad that Prabhupada left his body, but at the same time we have to see that Prabhupada returned back to service of Krishna again in his abode, right? And
yeah.
he has left behind for us all his books, all his teachings, all his instructions. And he wants us to do the same thing that he did.
They're like footsteps to come to Krishna.
Yes. And he wants us to follow all that instructions and purify ourselves and go back to Krishna. Very nice. Thank you, Manohar, for sharing.
Okay, bye.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Can Govinda say something?
Yes, Govinda.
Like we could follow the path of the like what was Prabhupada was teaching, and then we could go back to Krishna. Like that.
Yes. Very nice. Thank you. Okay, Hare Krishna. See you next